Okay guys, finally doing my sew along for the ladies pants. Simplicity 8056 I think is what it is. Yeah, Simplicity 8056. And this pattern's designed to allow you to do fitting, and it comes in a slim fit, a regular fit, and then a larger fit. So what you do is you measure your hips and your crotch and your waist. So I always do the hip just to be safe. This one has you just do your waist and your hip and your crotch length. Anyway, so with those three, you select your pattern size by the crotch length. So and the missus sizes up here, it goes from slim fit of 13.34 all the way up to a curvy fit of 15.34, and then when you go to woman size, it picks up at 15.34 all the way up to 17.34, 17 3/4 in other words. Anyway, so using this, it has you write your waist, your hip, and your crotch length in here, and then pick your pattern. When you look at the pattern, just double check your hip size, because you may have to go out a little bit or in a little bit. But what they do, they have you use a 1-inch seam allowances on this pattern. So by doing that, you're able to do some fitting stuff. Now on this one, I'm sewing it actually. I'm going to make this fit my wife, and I know in testing, I probably will do about a 5/8 inch seam allowance on the outside leg as opposed to the 1-inch size, because I measured it and kind of seeing how it was, I knew that that would fit her, probably without me having to rip the seams out and re-sew it. But for you, I'd go ahead and do the 1-inch. Just try it on and make sure it's basted, so long stitches, very loose tension, and then you can rip those out and then resize it so it'll fit you well. Anyway, let me show you what I've done to prep for this. It's taken me 2 nights to get everything cut out and prepped and everything, so it seems like it always takes longer to do prep than anything else. The fabric I'm using, my wife got it, she liked it, and here's who it's from. Zelouf, this is ZELOUF International, and I think it's zelouf.com is the website. And this is it's item number 4607, and it's baby Garradine. It says 57/58 inch, so that's the width of it, and the color is charcoal. So that's it. I'll put a link to it in the description video. I don't know how long they'll have it in stock, but hopefully you can get it if you like it. And so that's that. Now the other thing I'm going to show you is the pocket fabric I use. It's for tailoring, and it is from Be Black and Sons out of Los Angeles, and they sell a lot of stuff for tailors that are doing suits and stuff like that, a lot of suiting supplies and stuff. Anyway, so I've gotten kind of used to using their products, but I'll leave a link for the pockets in there. I'm using black pockets in this, and so That's the material it's made of. It's a kind of a thin fabric. Works well for pockets. I've serged all the way around them, and I've also serged some of the other things here. Alright, let's get this out of the way. Let me show you some of the things that I've done. Let's see. Item number 11, 5, 6, 9. This is number 2, and the pants will be number 1. Okay. Alright, so 2 and 4 are the pockets. So one's for the front of the pant, the other one's for the back of the pant. So it says yoke and pocket, and this one just says pocket lining. Anyway, so you need to cut 2 of each of these out, and you need to pay attention on these patterns. There are a lot of dots for, I put tailor's tacks in them. Sometimes when I'm getting ready to sew them, I'll remove the tack and put a little white chalk line on there. I just don't like chalking it up to begin with, because oftentimes I use real chalk and it'll get rubbed off and stuff, so I just use tailor's tack. A tailor's tack is you thread a needle with a long piece of thread, and you find your dots, and when you find one, you take the needle and stick it down through the fabric, pull the thread through. And if you're doing them stacked, which is the way I did these, you got to do a really long piece of thread, probably about that long. Pull it down through there, and then you can pull it apart and allow enough room for the pieces, and then cut it in the middle, and that'll leave you enough on that side and enough on this side here. Let's see what's going on with this one. Yeah, it's fine, it's just long. Anyway, so that's what I've used for my pocket fabric. This one just has, yeah, it has 2 marks. It's got one here and one up here. So pay attention to the dots. That means that's where they want you to mark it. And then pay attention to the spots where you need to cut out your notches too. It's got a lot of notches on it, so just cut them all out and you'll be done. Now what I did on the waistband is I interfaced both the front and the back, and anywhere where there's a buttonhole, like on this one, let me find the other piece. Okay, this is the front left. Yeah, this is the front left. And what I've done is I've got, this is also a tailoring supply interfacing. I've got my regular interfacing on. I came in and put a block on here, and this is how that interfacing looks. It's see-through basically, but it's extremely strong. It won't give at all. So it's used in tailoring also, and it's a very good piece of stabilizer. I'll put a link in there for you, but anyway, I put that on the side that the button's going to be on. I always put it on both sides, because if you're putting a clasp or something inside a pant, like on this side, or a button or something like that, the back side of it, you don't want to feel it. So you can see I've got interfacing on both sides here. So that way when the buttons and the clasp and all that are put in, the buttonhole sold and all that, you're less likely to feel it through the fabric on the other side. So do that if you want to. I always do that. I found it makes a big difference in stuff I do for clients. Alright, so that's the waistband. This is the pocket facing. This is the only thing that's not interfaced. it doesn't want it interfaced, and I didn't see any reason why to do it because it's just the pocket facing. So follow the instructions on that. You will not interface it. This is the front yoke. It's also not interfaced because it'll be sewed on and we won't need it interfaced. So that's piece number 5. Piece number 6 is, this is the fly piece and it's fairly simple. It's got 2 notches on it. It's been interfaced and you want to interface it. Got my clip out there, and then you got a tailor's tack you need to do down here at the bottom. It shows it right there. So do your tailor's tack, and then when you're following the instructions it'll tell you what to do with the tailor's tack spot. They'll call it a mark. I call them tailor's tack because that's what we use. Alright, let's look at number 7 here. This is the underlap, and I've got it folded in half and serged along the raw edges. So I always serge my raw edges because eventually when you wash it they will start coming, they'll start fraying on you. Anyway, so there's how it sits when it's folded, and then our tailor's tack is down here at the mark. So that's number, what is that, number 7? Okay, we got that. And then the last one here is the back waistband. I've interfaced all 4 pieces of it. So we got 2 for the left and 2 for the right. Anyway, they're all interfaced. I'm going to leave a link to the interface that I use. It's very light and you can buy it by the roll, and a roll will last quite a while. So I use it on a lot of pants and stuff that I sew up, and I like it. It's fairly affordable. You can get it off Amazon. I think they've got it, if I remember right. Anyway, you can get it off Amazon, and it actually works out very well. Alright, let me get the machine up here on the table and get rid of the mat and get some things organized here, and we'll start doing our sew along. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to capture this sew along in steps by the pattern. So it's going to be step 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. That way you can kind of follow along. Okay, I'm sorry. Before we get started, let me review the pants pattern. You're going to see in the front, they've got an outline of the line you're going to sew for the fly. And then you've got a tailor's tack right here at this point. And you also have a tailor's tack over on this side, where I'm doing a size 14 pattern. I'm sorry I forgot to tell you that. It's in the ladies size. Anyway, it's size 14, and I guess it's Mrs. and woman's size. Anyway, the larger size. Anyway, so you got a tailor's tack right here at 14. You have a tailor's tack right there you need to do, and you've got one up here. That one got caught in the serge seam. Just trying to keep everything out of the way. It's okay, it'll pull right out. Anyway, so you've got one up here, and you've got one right here, and one right here. So do your tailor's tack. Now what I do to get my line, you'll see it on the left side of the pattern, that right there. I come in here and I fold the paper at the line and I do little clip marks in it, and that allows me to do a mark here, 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 and then where the dot is. Anyway, I can take a ruler and draw that straight line, and then a curved angle ruler to complete it, and it comes out perfect. So anyway, that's a good way to do it. Just do a few holes in it, clip out some holes, and you mark it like that. Anyway, so we've got 2 marks here, we've got one over here, and then there's one right here at the leg line. I've serged over the seams, I can see them, but anyway, they should line up. The legs usually line up. I don't worry about those so much, and a lot of times there are a lot of notches and patterns that you look at and you go, it lines up. So anyway, there's one over here too. So cut your notches out, and that's the front. Now let me get the back pattern and we'll look at it. It's got the darts in it. Okay, I'm not going to put the fabric under it, but anyway, what you want to pay attention to up here, you've got your size darts, whatever size it is, and then you've got I do a tailor's tack in these dots in here for each one. Then I'll clip at the top each point where I'm going to have to fold it to do the dart, and you've got a tailor's tack here. You've got a tailor's tack here, and you've got clips, 3 clips here and 1 clip here, and that is all on this one. And they use 1 3/4, I think it is, or 1 1/4 inch hem lines. Yeah, it's 1 1/4 inch hem lines, so that gives you plenty of room for adjusting. But it's a little bit long, and it's always good and fitting to go wider and longer than what you need. It's easier to adjust in, but if it's too small you can't add fabric, so that's why they do it. Anyway, so that's the back. And now that we've gone through that, we will get the sewing machine set up and we'll get started. Okay, let me go through the machine I'm using. It's a Brother 1500S, and I'm using a walking foot since this has lycra in it and it stretches. So I'm using a walking foot to make sure that the layers even up, and I'm going to be using a stitch length right around 3. It's a dowel, so it's just slightly under 3. And I did a test with a universal needle, and I always do remove some of the stitches and see how the fabric looks, and then I did a ballpoint, which is what I'm going to use, and a ballpoint works well in this. I don't know if you can see the stitches right there, get it over in the light, but the stitches came out very nice and look good, so that's what I'm going to use. The thread I'm using is a Text 50. It's an industrial spool. It'll be a T40 and home sewing thread, and I've got a size 11 needle in here, and the test stitches look good, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, let's move on. The pattern has step 1. Get it here. Step 1 is to stay stitch the upper part of the pants, front and back, and do it at a 1/2 inch, and then stay stitch the upper edge of the pocket lining at a 1/4 inch along, or 6 millimeters if you're European. But anyway, so we're going to do number 2 pocket, stay stitch across it at 1/4 of an inch, and then all the top end of the pants are going to be done at 1/2 inch on the top. So I'm just going to show doing the top of the pant, and we'll do a top of the pocket. So let's do that first. Okay, get on my 1/2 inch mark, which is right there. Lower the foot and off we go. You want to back stitch on this because you want these stitches to stay. I'm going to shorten my stitch to 2.5. I'm on 3. Let me shorten it. Okay, there's one. I'll go ahead and press it to flatten it back out. So do that after you do that. Tell you what, I'll go ahead and do the other one here. Got it in my lap. See if I can get the right end. Yeah, that's it. Couldn't find the crotch area. Alright, here we go. 1/2 inch mark. Alright, there's that one. Now we'll do the back pieces, and then next I'll get one of the pocket pieces and show you how to do that. Okay, I stay stitched all 4 sides of the pants. Now we're going to do the number 2 pockets. There's 2 of them, so we have to do that at 1/4 of an inch. Find my thread back there somewhere. There it is. Okay, if you're using tailor tacks, go ahead and press them downwards before you do this to make sure you don't get them caught in the stitches. And also you may want to kind of stretch it a little bit before you press it. Kind of stretch it back out. It kind of gathers it up a little bit. Let me cut my thread here. Okay, there's that one. Now we'll do this one. Again, I press my thread down so it stays out of the way. Tailor's tacks. Okay, get a 1/4 inch here. That popping sound you're hearing is my iron coming back on to keep the water boiling. Okay, now I'll give that a good press and then we're going to move on to step 3. Oh, my triangles didn't come out. Okay, anyway, give it a good press and then we'll move on to the next 3. Step 3. Okay, at the very end of step 1 it says to reinforce the left front. That's the one with the fly top stitching line on it. It says to stitch along the seam line about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters on each side of the large dot. This is to reinforce it. So and I got my tailor's tack here. I'm going to leave it in there. We'll need it later when we're sewing, so you can just kind of sew over it if you need to. But 1 inch on each side of it, it says. So go about 1 inch here. Okay, there's our reinforced stitch. Take care of that. And we'll move on to the next step, which looks like putting on the facing on the pocket. So we'll do that next. Okay, step 2 is going to be, I'm sorry, we already did step 2. Step 3, pin stitch along the niche, trim settings. We're going to take pattern piece number 3, which is the pocket facing, and sew it on to the pockets. So you're going to put the wrong side of the facing on. First you need to press this seam on the outside over so it doesn't show the raw edge, and then line it back up. And actually I can take these bar tacks out now. Don't need those, not bar tacks, I'm sorry, or marks out, because it's done its job. We can see where they line up. And we've got a cut here and a cut here, or a notch for lining it up. But at this point, It's not important they line up perfectly because that's going to lay flat on there and it will go down to the bottom. Anyway, so we're going to stitch along this edge here, and I go ahead and come up and stitch along down here to anchor it down. So that will keep it in place. So I'm going to start along this edge here and then work my way up the side of it. Okay, now we're going to come and stitch along this edge here to anchor it down. Okay, now we'll turn and lock the top down and then come back down this side right here to keep it anchored down. Alright, that's the way it'll look. It looks nice. So cut my threads, and then I'll do the next one, and then we'll move on to the next step. So do the second one just the same you did this one, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, we're on to step 3 now, and it's going to be sewing the pocket together with the front side of the pants. So you're going to put right sides together, so there's your facing, and you're going to line these 2 notches up. Just basically align it with the seam. Don't worry about, you know, your notches at this point. It's just a marker basically. So get my pocket laying flat. Trying to get my tailor tack threads out of the way. Alright, there's that one. Let's get this one out of the way. And this one you're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch. I think that's it right there. Okay. Yeah, so much for folding that up. Alright, there's my 5/8 inch mark. Make sure I'm lining my edge up here. next thing we're going to do is do our understitch. Let's see what it says to trim it. Right sides together so the raw edge is even. Pin pocket lining to the front, matching small dots. Stitch single notch edge. Trim seam. Okay, so we do have to trim the seam, and then we're going to turn it over and understitch to keep our seam allowance down like this. So we'll fold it over and then we'll do a stitch along here, but let me trim the seam, get it pressed, and then we'll do that next. Okay, I've trimmed the seam down to about 1/4 inch and I've pressed it towards the pocket. So now we're going to do our understitching to keep the seam back there. So I'm going to come down through here probably about 1/16 of an inch away from the seam. It's going to be fairly close since my seam is not that wide. So make sure I anchor it down. Alright, here we go. I've also increased my stitch length to a little bit over 3 since we're top stitching. And when you do this, pull the fabric flat. Alright. Okay, our pocket should lay over nicely now. We'll take it like that, press it. You want to press it where that seam doesn't show on the front side. So just barely get the seam over when you press it, about like that. So anyway, I'll press it next. I'll sew the other one on, and then we'll move on to understitching the lining. We've done that, so we're going to go to step 5 next. Okay, I've got the pocket pressed over very nicely so it kind of hid the seam on that side. Now we're going to do a top stitch. They say about 1/4 inch. I just kind of use the edge of my presser foot. Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and line it up with the 1/4 inch mark. That'll work. It's the edge of the presser foot here. Alright, here we go. This one I'm going with a 3.5 inch stitch length. Sure I've got everything flat. Alright, there's our top stitch. It should look nice. Give it a press. I'll do the other one in the same way, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we're up to step 6 now. It says finish long unnotched edge of front yoke, which is number 5, in the same manner as the pocket facing. Then it says have narrow side facing outside. Pin wrong side of front yoke over the front yoke. I'm trying to see what we're doing next. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is press this the way it's going to go on the pocket. This side's got to be pressed over just like we did the last one, so that the raw edge doesn't show. So press it over 1/4 of an inch, and then we'll sew it onto this pocket. Okay, now we're going to sew piece number 5 to the other pocket, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come down through here to lock it down, come back around, come up this edge here. So I think I'm going to start on the side here first and just come down and lock it down on the side. Move this over a little bit. Alright, there we go. And I'll just do like 1/4 of an inch seam to lock it down. Bring my stitch length back down. And you should have notches to match up. And also remember to press this seam over like you did on the other pocket too. So, alright, here we go. Got a little short on the top here. I'm going to fold it over to make sure it catches it. Alright, there we go. Alright, got that one done. Going to press this now. We'll do the other pocket, and then we're going to attach it to the front pocket. So let me do that and get the other one sewed, and we will move forward to the next step. Okay, I've attached the pocket piece to the front, with wonder clips, and this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. So that provides the part for you to finish out your front edge. So we're going to sew the pocket together now. Now I've already serged my pocket edges, so if you haven't, you can just serge it together, but I'm just going to come do about a 1/4 of an inch stitch around here to sew the pocket together. So I'll start up here. Under clips on backwards here. Attach it to the front waistband. Okay, we should be able to start right there. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to end right there. So, okay. Let's just sew this part first, then we'll come up here and lock this side down. Yeah, I should be able to get it. Just do it like that. Shorten my stitch up a little bit under 3. I'm actually attaching this to the front side of the pants here. Alright, now we should be able to get something's not setting right. Let me see what it is. Alright, let's do it this way. And just basically sew up to the where you see the fabric starting, and then back stitch, That'll keep that sealed up. Alright, now we can sew our pocket together. This fabric laying flat here, so when we come around it'll seal up. Okay, now we just need to turn and come up just to right about where that stitch line is there. That'll seal it off. Alright, that gives us our pocket. Cut the thread here and we'll have a look at it. Let's see, any more threads? A few loose ones here. Okay. That gives us our pocket on the front. I'll press everything, get it nice and flat, and we should be able to move on the next step then. So, alright, I'll have to attach the other pocket before I move on to the next step, so let me get that done and then we'll move on. Okay, I was reading step 7 here, and they're talking about stitching from this notch up, basting and all that. There's no need to do that. I've sewed this type of pants many times before, so what they're trying to do is anchor everything down. So what you're going to do is get your pocket piece over sew it from the wrong side so you can see what's going on. Alright, so there's your pocket lining up with the edge there. You just want to anchor it down with a few stitches, about 1/4 inch, so that when you sew your pants legs together, it'll be good. Okay, there's that one. Now we're going to attach the top side. So just make sure everything's laying nice and flat. And we're just going to come down here and attach it to the top. This will keep it from flopping around, anchor it down good, but more importantly, you're anchoring this part down here where your hand goes in the pocket. Alright, got that anchored down good now, so everything's attached. Looks good. Okay, let me do the other side the same way, and then we'll move on to step 10, which is going to be putting the front together, and we're going to sew from let's see, I don't know, I'll have to look at it. The dot is there for a reason going to it, so let me look at that and we'll get to that next. Okay, quickly on this side, since you've got the fly part here, I only sew this part right here down to attach this piece to it, so it's going to be just a few stitches right here to make sure it stays attached. So it's just about that long, so that will stay attached. So anyway, do that. And the other thing you need to do is attach it here on the side. So let's come down here to 1/4 inch, and we're doing this on both pants. So about 1/4 inch is all it takes. Alright, so that's anchored down good now, so you can put your hand in your pocket and you'll be good to go. So, and I've left that part free, that way we can come down through here, and when we sew this, it's not going to be going through the pocket itself. So hang on, let me look at it again and see if that's even important. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and attach the pocket up here to the top, just before that notch. That'll keep it from flopping around. Again, some of this stuff I do based on experience of sewing these style of pants before. Okay, to the notch and back stitch. Okay, then that way we can get it away from that when we sew it. And these stitches up here will keep it anchored down to where the pocket doesn't fall, so that should be fine. Alright, that's the end of that. Now let's get the pants put together, and we're going to sew part of the front crotch seam together before we put the zipper in. Okay, I figured out what I missed. There's a dot right here at the crotch line. Somehow I missed that when I was doing my tailor tacks, so I put one in there. So we're going to sew from here to here, it looks like. So those are the two markings that we have. So anyway, just so you see it there, it's right there at the crotch, and mine's on the 14, there's 16 there and 18, so on and so forth. Anyway, so do your dot right there and a dot right there, and that's where you'll be sewing on this next step. Okay, I got my tailor tack put in down here that I missed, so we're going to sew from the notch up here at the top. It's at the bottom of the fly, and then we're going to 5/8 of an inch come down here to where this tailor tack is. So make sure your notches line up. I had to pull this one up just a hair to make sure mine lined up perfectly. So I'll pull it a little bit before I start sewing. That will make sure they line up. Get it under the pressure foot first. I'll pull on the top layer up just a bit, and they say to reinforce at the top, so we're going to go forward and backwards. I think I need to come down just a tad, about right there. Okay, that should be enough reinforcement. Alright, here we go. And we're going to stop down here at this mark. Okay, we're at the mark, back stitch. And we've got that put together, so it must be a 1-inch seam allowance there. Yeah, that's probably where we're going to start when we start joining the inner seam leg together. Okay, so now that we've got that, the next step is going to be putting the zipper in. So I know how to put a zipper in. Let me read the instructions so you can follow along. So I know some of these patterns use different techniques than I use, so let me kind of go through and figure out what they're doing here, and then we'll do that next. Okay, before we put the zipper in, the next step is going to be to clip the seam on the left side. So open up your pants. This is the left side. Put that on top. And we're supposed to clip it to the stitches, but not through the stitches. Here we go. Alright, that should do it right there. It's right to the stitches and not through them. So that'll free it up for sewing the zipper in, is what I'm guessing they're doing here. So I usually do that when I'm putting the zipper in, trim at the ends. So, alright, let's look at how we're going to put the zipper in next. Okay, the first thing they want us to do is pin number 6 to the right side of the pocket. That's the one that has the top stitching on it. And line up the edge and line up your double notches right there. Mine's a little bit longer, so I'll probably just trim it off up here, but anyway, you're going to start just below the fold line there and start stitching. So well, I hate 5/8 inch seam allowances. I'm so used to sewing patterns that are cut without trimming. Alright. Get that thread out of the way. Make sure none's under it. Okay. Back up right there where the dot is. Okay, here we go. Okay, see what we'll do next. I'm probably going to have to trim the seam. But we'll read the instructions. See what they tell us to do. Okay, that's on there. Trim this top off since it's too long. Now that lines up. Okay, let's see what we do next. Okay, as I suspected, they have me trim the seam down to 1/4 inch and then lay it down and press it flat towards the fly, and then we're going to turn it over and understitch on the fly part right here to keep that seam rolled over. So turn it over. And walking foot makes it hard to see where you are. So I'm going to come up just a tad. Okay, we're going to sew this at about, I don't know, 3/16 of an inch from the edge, just to catch that seam under it. Make it much easier to fold it over. Alright, here we go. And pull it apart as you're sewing it. Just keep it nice and flat. Alright, now they'll have us press it over, I think. I don't know, let me read the instructions, see what they want to do. Now they'll probably have us put the zipper on here first, but let me read them, see what we're going to do. This is step 13, I believe. Okay, they want the zipper head 7/8 of an inch down from the top, so I've marked a chalk line there. And then they want the zipper teeth. The zippers are going to be face down, and you're going to be sewing the right side of the zipper 1/4 inch away from the edge. I'd encourage you to buy a longer zipper. This is 11 inch, and this pattern probably requires about an 8-inch zipper. So it allows you a little bit more flexibility when you're doing this kind of stuff. So I'm going to put this on the 7/8 inch mark, right at 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to follow my chalk line down like this. And I'll end up sewing it like that. So I need to change to a zipper foot, so let me do that and we'll sew it down. But anyway, it's easy to mark it. It makes it a lot easier than trying to sit there with a ruler. And I'd put that stop just right below that 7/8 inch mark, just barely below it. And then mark it up with a 1/4 inch, and we're going to come stitch this down with a zipper foot. Okay, I've got my narrow zipper foot installed on, and making sure this is at 7/8. It looks good. Gonna line that up on the 1/4 inch mark, and here we go. Got that side installed. Now we'll see what we have to do next. More than likely we're going to have to press it under and top stitch it, but let me look at the instructions and I will be right back and we'll follow them. Okay, let me show you how I'm going to sew this zipper and the protector in. We're going to be able to do it in just one stitch. So I've put some tape on the zipper to hold this in. First we folded this piece over 3/8 of an inch, and then I put the tape on it, taped it down, and the teeth are just outside of the seam side. So we've got that anchored down now, so that's good. Now you match this dot with that dot when you turn it over. So turn it over. And find where that dot is. And match that with that dot. And then line it up with the zipper, and you can use tape on that too once you get it lined up. So that's basically how it will look, and we'll come down through here and sew a stitch to lock the zipper down. Like that. Let me get all this thread out of the way here so we can see. Anyway, so it'll be like that. It'll be from the dot sewed all the way up to the top, and that will lock everything in. So let me get some tape on this piece and get it together, and we'll sew it together. Okay, I've got the piece folded under 3/8 of an inch here. Then I put tape on the zipper to attach it to the zipper, and then on the back side I put tape on the zipper and lined up the notch here with the notch down there, and then went straight up. That shows you the distance they want it from it. So anyway, it makes it easier. You can sew it in one pass instead of basting it and stuff. So here we go. Increase my stitch length to 3.5. Okay. We stop at the dot. We're at the dot, back stitch. That's it. With one pass, we've got the dadgummit that folded up. Let me rip these stitches out and fix that. Anyway, I'll fix it. I'll just have to rip them out and do about 4 stitches over it. Anyway, using that method, you can do it all in one pass. So you don't have to baste or anything. Just make sure that's flat. Somehow mine got folded under. Okay, so after that, should be able to zip up the zipper. Got a long zipper here. I'm going to have to cut it off. They said don't cut it off yet, so we'll see when they tell us to cut it off. Probably going to do the zigzag and stuff first. That will be pressed over like that. Once I take those pins out, and that's basically how it will look. Got a stitch right there. Anyway, that will complete the zipper. Let me see what we have to do next, and we'll do that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sew the front here down right now. I've got everything zipped up, got the pocket out of the way, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. So on thread, get behind there. There we go. All right. Find my foot. There we go. Got that part done. There it is. Let me iron it, get the chalk off of it. It should look good though. Did 3.5 inch stitch length to do top stitching. So okay, let's see what we have to do next. Okay, we got our fly in now. This is how it's looking. Everything looks nice. So now that we've got everything anchored down, I need to cut the zipper off, and then we need to do a bar tack here. So I'm gonna have to set up another machine so we can do the bar tack there. But anyway, let's go ahead and turn it over and cut the zipper off. Everything's tacked down from the stitch that came down. So I use pinking shears when I cut zippers off. It helps keep them from fraying. Okay, there we go. It's cut off. Alright, that did the job, so now you can see our zipper pulls down. There's our fly shield back there behind it. Everything's nice and even. When you use that wash away tape, it anchors everything down so you can sew it. So I highly suggest you get some wash away tape. I've got a link that I'll leave. I buy it 3 rows at a time, and I go through it fairly quickly because I use it a lot. Anyway, I think one of the things I'm going to do, I'm looking at these pockets. They're they come over way too far. This is wasted space right here, and on this one over here it actually comes to the point where it wants to overlap. And I think what I'm going to do is cut them off about right there on each side. This side I'll cut it to where it lines up probably with that. And that way I can come and make sure it's stitched down, anchored down good. But I don't know why they would make pockets that huge on these pants, because I don't know what you're going to do with that. But anyway, it's just my personal preference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it, serge it, just serge the ends together, and then I will probably sew a seam down to reinforce it. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll get the machine set up and we'll do the zigzag. So again, cut it, serge it, do a stitch down it on each side where I need it. That kind of got a fold line there that will work. So I'm going to press it, create a good fold line, and then cut along the fold line. And I mean, they should have probably come straight up from here and it would have been fine. So alright, let me do that, and then I'll get the machine. We'll do the bar tack on the front. Okay, I was going to show you how I cut the pockets. This one I came down here with a serger, just trimmed it off, and this one I did the same thing. So now I can just kind of come here and stitch them down. I had to remove some stitches on this one to get to it, but anyway, I can just come here and stitch these down and not have to worry about them interfering with anything. So anyway, that's what I did. Don't ever be afraid to make some modifications to patterns, but when I look at pockets and I see that kind of space and then it comes down like this, your hand goes down in it. It doesn't go like this. So this one will allow you to go a little bit further over, but it doesn't really matter. It comes down nicely now. It'll set down nicely. But anyway, I could have left them. I probably could have come over to here. Maybe I cut a little bit too much off of this one, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to work either way. So anyway, if you find it doing like mine did, this one coming way over here on this side or whatever, don't be afraid to trim it back to about right here, and it'll be fine. So anyway, that's it. Let me get the machine set up so we can do our bar tack on the front of it, and then we'll move on. Okay, I've got the Brother, it's an ST371 HD. It's called the Strong and Tough machine. I've had this for a couple of years and I've only used it one time. So it was on top of the pile, so I dug it out. So let's see if we can do our bar tack on it. Let's see, go over just a little bit more. Alright, here we go. Back stitches, and let's see how it looks. Come on, thread release. There we go. It looks pretty nice. Probably made it a little bit too long, but it's okay. The thread blends in nicely. Alright, that should hold everything together nicely right there at the bottom. Zipper, it'll stop just above it. Zip it back up, and that should be good. Alright, so we got the bar tack done. Let's look at the next thing we need to do. Look at the instructions here and see what it is. Okay, 22 says for slim or average pants, stay stitch the upper edge of the back, same as the front. Make one dart on each section of the back. So we have to sew our darts now. So let's get that set up real quick and we'll sew the darts. I'm going to go back to using my brother machine. So let me take this one down and get the brother machine set back up, and we will sew our darts. Okay, I got the machine set back up, so we're ready to sew our dart. It'll be one on each side of the back, so you should have a clip mine on each side for the dart leg, and then I've got my bar tack down here where the end is. So I'll start up here at the top, on my foot. Pedal, I should say. Alright, here we go. Hopefully I turn the machine on. Very gradual dart. Alright. Some long thread tails so we can tie them off. So get rid of that now, it served its purpose. Should have a little bit longer thread tails. It's okay, I can make it work. One more just to be safe. Alright, knotted, leave a little bit of a tail there, and we'll press it towards the side. I'll often see which way it wants to lay, and then I press it that way. So alright, let me get the other ones sewed, get them both pressed, and then we will move on to the next step. So anyway, that's sewing the dart. Sorry guys, I overlooked the second dart on the back, so I'm going to go ahead and sew it now. It's just a little bit before the spot, but that'll be okay. It's close enough. Give me some longer thread tails this time. There's tack's done its job. Remove it. A lot quicker than you leave the tails long enough. Alright. Okay, we got our two darts sewed in. So let me do the other one, get it pressed, and we will move on now. For real this time. Okay guys, one of the things I always do is go ahead and sew the darts down in the direction they're folding up here at the top of the seam. So get it good and flat, and then sew about I'm at a setting stitch length of 2. Just go over it and back. There's that one. Now we'll do this one. That'll lock it down nicely. That when we sew the waistband on, you won't have to worry about it flopping up. So just takes a second to do it, but it makes it really nice. You're putting a waistband on, you got a lot of other things to worry about than trying to keep those seams down. So anyway, do that if you want to. If not, do it your way. But I just thought I'd show you what I do. Alright. Now we got our darts all sewed in. I've got them all pressed. There's how the back of the pants will look. So should look nice. And we'll move on to the next thing now. So let me see what's next and we will do that. Okay, we're now going to start putting our waistband pieces together. First thing I'm going to do is sew the buttonhole that needs to be on it, and one of the things I always do is cut two pieces identically and interface them identically, and then I do my test buttonholes to make sure I get my buttonhole perfectly sized. So first one was a little bit big, the second one was the right size, so that's the one I'm going to be using on this one here now. So I've got it lined up at the mark, and here we go. This is my Brother PC 420 machine, and I pretty much use it for buttonholes. It does very nice buttonholes, so that's primarily what I use it for. I rarely sew on it any other way, so anyway, I pull it out when I'm doing buttonholes. So here we go. there's my buttonhole. It's just a little bit longer than what the mark is because I think the button's just maybe just a tad bit larger. Cut it out here and test our buttonhole. Turn it back on this side and give it a little bit of a haircut here. Alright, see if our button goes through it nicely. Yeah, that should work. So looks good. Anytime I'm doing a buttonhole that's on the inside and you can't go all the way through it the way this one is, always make the buttonhole just a tiny bit bigger. That way when they're trying to get it through there, it'll go through there fairly easy and it will lock into place. So anyway, okay, that's our buttonhole. We got that done. And so now we will start sewing the waistband on next, and shouldn't take me too much longer to get this thing finished up. So let me get the machine switched around and we'll start on that step next. I don't know what step it is, I'll have to look it up. So. Okay, now we're going to put our waistband on. On the back side, you should have notches that you can line up, and you're going to put the longer curved edge front side facing on your waistband on each side, and then on the front just go ahead and unzip your zipper, and you're going to put the button side, again you have notches to match up on it at the waistband. You're going to put the button side on the, let's see, that's the right side, and the overlapping part on the left side. So you see I've got this interfaced right here for putting the hardware on. I always do that. And I've got obviously that on the button side, but I will also interface the opposite side where the waistband comes down to keep you from feeling the hardware so much. So I put the same interfacing, this stiff interfacing, that I'll put a link to for you. And this is this side to match for the inside. So anything that gets put on here, we won't feel it. I go ahead and interface all of my inner and outer. I know it says just do the outer, but this stuff is so light and airy that it just I do both of them because of it. So you make up your mind on what interfacing you use if you want to do that, but that's what I do. Okay, now let's sew. We'll do the back first and then I'll do the front. So we're going to sew these on at 5/8 of an inch. It's hard for me to get used to sewing at 5/8 of an inch because all my patterns I design and stuff I sew, it's always a 1/2 inch. So kind of get that built in. I've got to pay attention to remember to use 5/8 of an inch. So, alright, there's our 5/8 inch mark. Bring that around so it matches. So because of that, the waistband is going to be a lot smaller than what it appears. Alright, so that's on the 5/8 inch mark. Here we go. Yeah, it would help if I'd connect the pedal. There we go. Now it'll go. Turn the machine on. Get this nice and flat. And this is when actually anchoring your dart down at the top, the way I showed earlier, helps, because you don't have to worry about that dart flipping around when you sew on top of it. It keeps it nice and anchored down. Everything lined up here at the top. Okay. Okay, there's that back piece. Now I'll sew the other back piece and the two fronts just in the same way, and then we'll look at what we've done. Okay, I've got all the waistband sewed on, and what you're going to want to do, I'll show you on this one. Trim your seam allowance to about 1/4 inch, and then press this part up while pulling the waistband to make it nice and smooth. So anyway, cut all your seam allowances to 1/4 inch, and then press the seam on the inside up, and then pull this out or up so it's nice and flat, so your waistband will look nice. I'll go ahead and finish up, and I'll show you the results. Okay, one note, when you're trimming the front, do not trim this extension. So trim from right here all the way down, and leave this part untrimmed. So if you have to mark it or whatever you have to do when you cut it, make sure you don't cut this piece off on either side. So on this side either. So make sure you stop right before you get to this part right here. Alright, let me get this cut and I'll show you the results. Okay, let me show you what I did. I went in and cut a little slit right here to mark where the end was, and that made it much easier coming down through here and trimming the seam until that point. So go ahead and take it this way and cut it in a little bit, whatever you're going to cut off, like to here, and that'll keep you from going over the line. So okay, let me get this pressed up and ready to go, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Here's what I trimmed off. Anyway, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, our next step is going to be pinning, clipping, or whatever, sewing the inner leg seam. So pin right sides together, each back pants to the front, and I'm just going to come down through here and sew this together all the way down in one stitch. So alright, I'm only going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance instead of 5/8 on this, because I know that's what my wife will need. I mean, I could start at 5/8 down here and come up and taper to a 1/2 inch towards the crotch, but I'm sewing these so they'll fit my wife, so it's not a wasted project. Anyway, so on yours, for your test fitting and stuff, sew at 5/8 of an inch. And I've got my walking foot back on for this also, because this fabric does stretch. Alright, here we go. And I'll probably modify these legs once she tries them on, make sure they fit. She doesn't like legs this big, so I'll probably end up just re-sewing the legs after I cut them to the size she wants. And if I didn't say it before, I also went ahead and serged the legs and everything just to finish them off, because this fabric frays, and when you're doing your fitting, if you need to cut some off, you can reserge it to finish it off. And if you follow the directions, when you get up to the crotch area, you're going to have some opening in it. Once you do your fitting and get everything just right, you can come back and close that part up if you need to. I don't mean if you need to, you'll have to. But anyway, this was set up to be 5/8 of an inch, and I'm only doing a 1/2 inch, so I'll have to close mine up. Okay, that's one leg. And I'll do the other leg. Tailor's tack out of the way. Everything nice and flat. Here we go. Alright, that's the inner leg on each side. So I will press the seam open. First I'll press it flat, then press it open. And then I will go ahead and come down on the crotch area and join this together. So I'll go ahead and show you how I do that. It always flips, put away. Anyway, so press the seam flat and then press it open, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, our next step is to pin our crotch together, and I'm going to do something different again because I know this will fit my wife, but for you, for fitting, I'm going to start right here where we left off on the front crotch, and I'm going to start coming up this way. And when you hit this spot here, you want to go out to 1 inch seam back here for fitting purposes. Now my wife, I know I've tried these before, and at this size I can just sew it at 1/2 inch. The first time I did it, I did that, and I had to come out to 1/2 inch to make it fitter. So I've already done the fitting on these. But anyway, so you'll sew at 5/8 of an inch from here to here, and then you will go to 1 inch gradually as you come up to the waistband up here. Okay, so on mine I'm just going to sew it at 5/8, I mean at 1/2 inch, because again I know it'll fit her. Okay, I'm just going to continue where my other stitch was. That was at 5/8, and then as I come around I'll gradually go to my 1/2 inch mark. Okay, now I'm at my 1/2 inch mark, so I'll just keep sewing at 1/2 inch. Tailor's tack out of the way here, so over it. It's pressed inward, so we should be good on that one. Let's get the bottom one out of the way. Alright, here we go. And this will also have a bearing when we sew the waistband that's going to fold over to the inside, what your seam allowance is. So if you've sewed this at 1 inch, remember that, because you need to get to 1 inch before you get to the waistband. That way it's straight up and down, and it'll match when you sew the back, the fold over part of the waistband. Alright. Let's get our crotch tied down good. The only thing I missed is this went flat, so I'm going to have to rip out a couple of stitches here and re-sew that part. It shouldn't be any big deal. Rip that one. Get that one out. Alright, flatten it out. And just sew a few stitches back over it. Shows you we all make mistakes sometimes, but pay attention to yours. Make sure your seams lay good and flat when you're sewing over them. It's just that back one got out of whack. Alright, it's all fixed up now. Alright, so now we have our crotch sewed up. Next thing to do is to pin the outer legs together. And then we'll sew the outer legs together next. So that's also an area you can do fitting. You can do 1 inch seam allowance on the outer leg and then do fitting on it. I'm just going to do 1/2 inch again because I know that will fit my wife. And after that point, we will get the outer waistband sewed together and get it on. So, okay, pin the outer legs on each one, and we're going to sew that next. Okay, our next step is going to be attaching our front to back on each side. We already got our inner legs sewed, so right sides together, and we're going to sew the side seams.
So I'm going to fast forward through this. And I'm also going to sew mine at a 1/2 inch. You'll want to sew yours at 1 inch for fitting purposes. But again, I know I've already done the fitting on these, and I know a 1/2 inch works well for me. I should say for my wife. Anyway, so sew yours at 1 inch, and then you're going to do your fitting at that. So here we go. Okay, that completes the front to back. Now we got a pair of pants. So next thing we'll do is sew the waistband together for the inner fold over, and use the seam allowance that you've used on your side seams and your back crotch. When you do that, that way it'll match up when you put it together. So we'll move on to that next. Okay, it's time to sew our inner waistband together. So I'm just going to do the back first. So I'm going to match my notches here and bring this over a little bit. Alright, so I used 1/2 inch seam allowances, so I'm going to use the same on my waistband. Try to get everything to match up. And I'm going to sew the back one first and just do a quick dry fit to make sure that it lines up perfectly with the other one. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to press it out and see if it matches the front one perfectly here before I go any further, and make sure the seam matches and stuff. So let me do that, and then we'll move forward attaching the other two sides to it. Okay, I did a quick dry fit on the back and it lined up perfectly, so I'm going to sew the two fronts on at 1/2 inch. Okay, there's one side. Here's the other side. Sew it real quickly. Alright, we get our front and back attached. We will press the seams flat and get everything ready to go. We'll also go ahead and trim these seams down a little bit. Since mine are only 1/2 inch, I only have to trim about 1/4 of an inch off of it. Alright, so let me get this pressed and we'll attach it to the top side of the band that's already on, and then we're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch to attach it, and
we'll also have to come around to the front and stuff. I'll show you how to do that. So let's get that set up and we'll do that next. Okay, now it's time to attach our facing to our waistband. So I've clipped it together, matched the seams, put a pin through the seam to make sure they line up perfectly all the way around. And we're going to start right here at the front. We're going to come around this up there, and I've got to get to my 5/8 inch seam allowance. So move it over to 5/8 and try to get right to the edge of the fly there. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate my hand wheel and see where I am. It looks like I'm just a tad far off. Okay, let's try that right there. And I'm just rotating my hand wheel as I start. Alright, here we go. Went a little bit too far. Go back a couple of stitches. There we go. I'll just have to rip those 2 stitches out. I'm not used to 5/8 of an inch, I'm used to a 1/2 inch. Alright, let's see if that lines up. Yep, that lined up perfectly. Here we go. Everything nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to actually turn the hand wheel to get over this pin. I don't suggest sewing over pins because it can flap and hit you in the eye if it breaks off. So just turn your hand wheel if you're using a pin and get over it safely. on my other pin. On the hand wheel. And we're past it. Okay, going over the final pin. Yeah, I really suggest you putting the pin through the seams to line it up perfectly. It makes for a much more professional look. One more stitch. It's a shroud on the 5/8 inch. Now we're going to have to square this off and go right up to the crotch on the seam. About a half of a seam, so I'm going to shorten my stitch length. Just go a little bit. Put my stitch length back up. There we go. That puts it perfectly on the line. Alright, now we're going to sew up to, but not over, the crotch area here. Okay, take my pins out, perfectly aligned. That's perfectly aligned. And that seems perfectly aligned. So anyway, try to put your pins through your seams and that will make everything line up nicely. Alright, now I got to do some trimming. I got to trim this down to 1/4 of an inch, come here and cut these corners off and get this so I can turn this right side out where it looks good. So let me get on my cutting mat and cut this down, and we'll have a look at it. Okay, I've trimmed down the seam. You can see the stitch right there, so it's roughly about 1/4 of an inch, sometimes a little bit less, like here at where the seam, the belt loop, not belt loop, but the seam is. And then about 1/4 of an inch there, all the way around to here, and then cut that off. And I need to cut the corners off on this so we get good sharp corners. Okay. Now all we have to do is turn it right side out. It's a small area right there, so I got to push it through. I got that interfacing on it to stabilize it, so I'll have to just kind of work it through. So let me see if I can do any better on this end. It's a little bit shorter. There, let me see if I can push it out. Alright, there we go. There's that side. Now we're going to need to press the seam allowance basically right to the inside of the waistband, like that, and then we're going to have to turn this under so we can come and under stitch and catch it along the edge here. So let me work on getting this one turned inside out, and then I'm going to press this over where that seam is just barely showing on the inside, and I'm going to use some wash away tape to anchor that down so that when I do the stitch in the ditch, I don't have to worry about it moving, and I won't have to be sewing over pins and all that kind of stuff. So alright, let me get that done, and we'll get to tying the waistband down in the front. Now before you put this waistband, this facing on the waistband, that you need to try it on and get all your sizing down first, because you may have to adjust the seam allowances on the back here, and if you have to come in to another 1/2 inch or so, you want to wait until you've done all of that with just the waistband on without the facing on, and get all your sizing down. Then once you're finished, then you can sew this together where the seams match, you know, line up and stuff, and you can finish your waistband. So do your sizing first. Okay, I want to show you how I'm folding this over. So you see the seam line right there, and then I'm putting some wash away tape strips like that, just It doesn't have to be constant, just kind of cut some strips and then you can go along. And then when you fold it out under, you want it to just go just past the stitch line where the waistband has been put on. And that way when you do your ditch sewing, it'll catch right at the edge of the waistband. So what I do is I put the tape on here, make it stick, and then I roll it over, get it lined up, and then I press it, and then all I have to do is come over here and peel the tape off the layer of the tape, and then just turn it over, kind of let it fall naturally, and then just press it down, and that's how the waistband will look. So anyway, I'm going to leave a link to the wash away tape that I get off Amazon in the description, and it comes in 3 rolls, so I'd advise you to get it. It's very handy to use. I go through that stuff like crazy. So alright, let me continue around and get this ready to go, and then we will do the stitch in the ditch to tie it down. Okay, I've got everything locked down with a wash away tape here, so it's anchored down nicely all the way around. So I'm going to sew in the ditch to attach the waistband. Stitch length of about 2.5 here. You kind of need to keep it fairly short so you can stay in the ditch. And just kind of go nice and slow and keep it lined up. Okay, it's caught right along the edge. So if you fold it under and just put it right over the thread line from the waistband being sewed on, you'll get a nice even finish as you go around. So, okay, that gets our waistband on. Next thing we have to do is sew the button on, line it up and all that, and then we'll be finished. So, waistband looks good. I'm going to do a press on it, get it nice and pressed, and then we will get our button on and our clasp on, and after that we'll hem it and we will be finished. Okay, now that we have our waistband sewed on, we're going to have to sew our button on and our clasp on. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark the buttonhole. So these are jumbo wonder clips. It's what they're called, so you can look them up if you want to get some. They're good for holding larger things together. So I've got a piece of chalk here. I'm going to mark where the button needs to be. There's the mark, so I'll put a button right there and put it in just a little bit more. Alright. And just do a double thread through the needle, loop it through, and come down on the end. And you can tie your end off with a knot and sew your button on. So let me do that, and I'm only going to go through the inside layer when I'm sewing the button. I'm not going to go all the way through the outside. So should be enough to hold it. Alright, let me sew the button on and we'll look at that, and then next we'll put the clasp on. Okay, I got my button sewed on. So there it is. So everything's lined up nicely. So now I just need to mark where I need to put my clasp and hook. So put my clasp right there. And the hook right there. Okay, those two line up perfectly there. So now I'll just sew my clasp and hook on here, and then we'll be ready to hem the pants. Okay, I've got my button and my clasp sewed on. So the button, and there's the clasp. Everything looks nice and straight. Because it'll sit on the waistband. So I think we'll be good. Okay, next thing we need to do is hem our pants. So I'm going to do a blind hem on these, and I'll need to measure the length first and get it rolled up, and we'll do that next, and then we will be finished. Okay, before I do my hem, I'm going to do a long basting stitch to kind of hold this evenly. So I've loosened my tension way up, and I'm at about 6, length of about 6. Okay, it's going to be a 1-inch hem. So let me get my blonde hem machine set up and we'll get the hem done. Okay, I'm at my blind hemmer and got my basting stitch here to help hold everything down. And here we go. Alright. Nice blind hem. Everything's tacked down. Go ahead and remove my basting stitch. Alright, let me get the basting stitch out and we will press it and have a look at the final product. Okay guys, sorry I'm cutting my head off in this so we can see the pants, but anyway, here's the finished product. Everything's nice and smooth in the zipper area. The clasp and the button looks good. There's the front side. And there's the back side. Got our darts. Everything came out nice. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the sew along. Let me know if you guys have any questions at all. I'll be happy to answer them. And thanks for watching.